Hello everyone and welcome back to Bus Vintage Bikes. So this is part 4 of the Colnago Super build, and in this video I'm going to take you through the restoration of the handlebar, the stem and those Super Record brake levers, and we are going to take a look at these Record Strada cranks and chain blades. We're going to try and get this cleaned up as good as possible. I've got good vibes about this. I'm looking forward to this part of the restoration because they look so bad. A little bit more on that later. And then just a huge shout out to you guys. I'm officially over 1,000 subscribers, which I know isn't a lot by YouTube standards, but it means a lot to me. The content that I produce is not monetized yet. I do it for the love of vintage bicycle restorations, and I enjoy sharing those restorations with you and hoping it motivates you guys to save some of those old steel bikes out there. I personally have a huge passion for steel vintage bikes. I'm a big supporter of the Steel is Real movement. So yeah, get out there, save those bikes, work on them. They have still got a lot to offer. So thank you for your comments, thank you for your likes, and I really hope you enjoy the content going forward. Enjoy the video. Cheers. Next for a cleanup are these lovely Strada cranks. Quite bad condition. Not quite sure how you get a crank to look like this. It just looks like dirt though. I don't think it's got too many scratches in it. Very few actually. The more I look at the parts on this bike, the more I'm convinced that this bike never led a hard life at all. The condition of neglect on the frame has one believing that it's lived a hard life. By hard I mean ridden hard, put away wet kind of a thing, but I don't think it has. You know, cranks, bike that's been used for a lot of racing, you will pick up a lot of scuff marks on your cranks, a lot of scratches, pedals being clipped through corners and stuff like that. I'm not seeing that on this bike. Even the parts, the use on the parts looks quite low. Condition of these chain rings, excellent for the age. So I'm going to, for a start, we're going to take these crank bolts out and I'm going to drop them in evaporous solution and let them soak for 24 hours. And it's quite late in the evening here now, so I'm going to wrap it up for the evening. Tomorrow night we'll start again on polishing these cranks up. Right, so same procedure as every year, Miss Sophie. We are using the Scotch-Brite pad. I've put a set of new pads on here. Unfortunately, I prefer them a bit softer than these are. They're not coarse, but I prefer them to have a soft edge on them. So I'm just going to go over them quite lightly as a first pass. Let's hit this crank. Just to look at how dirty these edges are. Bottom edge worse than the top edge. Okay, so you can see how that's cleaned up all that dirt off of it very quickly. I was going very lightly on it as well. I don't want to take off too material. So I'm basically checking first to see how, if this crank has got a layer on it, is it an anodized layer, and do I need to go through that layer to get all these marks off of it? I have a feeling I might need to, just to get it nice and shiny, because I can see there's one or two deep scratches over here, for example. I want a couple up there as well. So we'll do this first. There's some scratches there also. So we'll do this first, and I'll do it to the other side of the crank, the drive side, and we'll see what we can achieve on it. So I've got the cranks to this point using the wheel, and you can see there's a lot of fine scratches on it from the wheel itself, the Scotch-Brite wheel. And it doesn't appear to be a coating on these cranks, because at no place have I actually gone through at all. I'm just going to take a Dremel with a smaller Scotch-Brite wheel and get into this area over here where I haven't been able to get into with a bigger wheel, as you can see. But the rest of it cleaned up really nicely. All that dirt and crud and off of it. But now we're going to hit it with sandpaper because we need to get these marks out. See, there's some scratches on it that are now only visible once we got all the dirt off of them. So the same process that I'd done previously on the seat post, I'm going to hit this crank with different grades of water paper, starting with probably a 600. We're going to go all the way through to 2000. I'm not going to bore you with that process. I'll show it to you when I'm finished with it. So here's a quick look at the non-drive side crank after I've gone through all the grades of water paper on it. You can see how messy this is. Drive side still to be done. So it's got this dull finish, and I'm now going to put it on the polishing wheel. And I'm hoping for a great result. Let's see what happens. So if you've done your prep work properly, this is what you're going to end up with. Literally a mirror finish. I'm going to get the drive side crank. So this is the crank that has just been hit with Scotch-Brite. You can see the difference between those two after all the grades of sandpaper. So it's a lot of effort, but the rewards are oh so worth it. So here we are with the rear derailleur, an absolutely gorgeous Super Record derailleur, and from what I gather, somewhat of a rare bird, as John put it in the comment section. Why, you may ask? Super Record are quite hard to come by this generation. Excuse the bandaged finger. Sometimes the restoration wins and I lose. This kind of sets it apart. It has some pantography in this cage, the likes of which I haven't seen. If any of you could explain that, I'd appreciate it, if you do have knowledge of that. When I saw the ICS gear levers on the bike, I thought maybe that this was an ICS Super Record rear derailleur, that ICS had sort of worked on it, but I don't think so. Overall, it's in really, really good condition. The only thing wrong with it are these two wheels that are both cracked, which is actually quite common. They wear rather quickly as well. But we have new ones on the way, and you can see the pantography in the cage at the back here as well. Now, I don't know if that was just pantography to make the cage lighter, so to just take material off of it, or if it was for decorative purposes. Who knows? I'm not sure. But it sure is good, and I'm pretty sure it's going to clean up lovely. So that's what a vintage Super Record looks like when it's pulled apart. So the only thing left in there is the spring on inside the cage. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get that out if I loosen that nut. But it's not really necessary. And I know that if I do take it out, it's going to be more effort to put it back in than what I'm going to achieve by taking it out. Because there's nothing that I cannot clean with it exactly the way it is. So I'm going to leave that little nut where it is. We'll clean up that cage nicely, and these are all the parts that came out of it, just for interest's sake. Quite a complex little piece of kit. So that's a wrap on the rear derailleur. Cleanup went really well. Really not a lot to do on this one. I've just put, for now, I've put the old wheels back on it, as we are still waiting the new wheels to arrive from Italy. Excuse the finger with a cut on it. That cleaned up really nicely. This cage has a very similar anodized coating on it, a satin sheen, to what the Cinelli stem has on it. So it'll polish up, but only to a degree. You won't get a mirror polish on it. But everything else cleaned up well. Very little rust on the nuts and bolts and things like that. See how brittle these woods are. They're really just falling apart. So we have new hoods on order, coming all the way from Italy. That is so gummy that it's literally like a pile of glue. I'm not going to be gentle with these because they're long boss, they sell by Dutch. It's a set of Super Record levers. You can see the Campagnolo logo on the back of it, and the design of the Derailleur holes. Always remember when you're taking a stem off of a handlebar that there's a certain pattern that you need to spin the stem in to get it off the bar. If you get it to the curve, one of these curves, and the stem is getting stuck on the bar, generally your methodology is a little bit wrong. So wiggle it around until you get it at the right orientation, and it should come off quite easily. Normally on a set of levers, I'll strip them apart and take the scratches out on the levers and polish them up. But to be honest, it's not even necessary on these levers. They're in that good a condition, which is strangely odd looking at the condition of the frame of this bike. But there's very few scratches on these levers at all. Normally you'll always see scratches on the outside of the lever from the bike leaning against things and falling over and stuff like that. The action's still very good. That's the little screw inside there that you would normally take loose to be able to slide the side pin out to take this lever apart. But we've got good action here. I'll give it a bit of lubrication. Still very clean inside as well. No buildup of grime and dirt in there at all. So what I'm going to do is I'll clamp the base into the vise and I'll go over them with my Dremel and just polish them up with a little bit of aluminium polishing compound, and we'll see what result we can get out of them. If you're doing this at home, note soft jaws in the vise, a cloth to protect it, very light pressure. No need to get ham-fisted and destroy anything on the levers. Trying to get to the dirt in the holes. A little bit of WD-40. Good old toothbrush. Add a bit of flavor in the mornings. Okay, so that took a little bit of manual graft. The Dremel wasn't small enough to get in to that sort of indented section, so I had to polish that by hand. And you can see that looks a whole lot better now compared to what the other one looks like. So sometimes we have to improvise. And to get in there, I used a sushi stick with a cloth wrapped around the end of it and rubbed it like that. The joys of bicycle restoration. So that's the brake levers cleaned up. Something I did notice was that this lever has a little scratch on it running down there. You can see the discoloration in the video, but because that scratch is covering part of the Campagnolo logo, I've decided to leave it as patina, because sanding that back is going to affect that logo more so than what the actual scratch is affecting it at the moment, and the scratch is not distracting from the overall look of the lever. So this Cinelli bar has been cleaned up as well. All I used was a bit of autosol. Really had very few scratches on it. One or two really small ones over here, but I'm not going to be worried about those, because if I try and sand them back, I'm going to take the coating off of the bar, and that we don't want, not for such a little or such few scratches. And then just something worth mentioning as well, if you do unwrap a bar and you're left with some of the sticky residue on the bar, it's often a good idea to leave it on, as long as it's not layers of it and old bar tape, because the next time you wrap the bar, this stickiness that's on the bar currently helps the new bar tape adhere better as well. So I'll often, if it's just like this, that it's just one layer of old bar tape and a little bit of sticky residue, make sure that there's no clear coating stuck on it. You just have this tacky sort of feel to the bar, and then you can wrap your new bar tape straight over that, and it just helps it a bit. So this evening I'm going to be taking a look at the stem in a bit more detail. You can see the clamp bolt has got a bit of rust on it over there. Let's see if we'll get that cleaned up with some steel wool, maybe the Scotch-Brite pad. A little bit of rust in there as well. Some WD-40 in there at the moment. And then the actual Cinelli stem looks in very good condition. Very few scratches, so I'm not going to strip this down because there's no deep scratches that I need to remove. Fortunately, there's some markings on it here which I'm not too sure what they are. You can see that. Pretty sure we'll get those off with the buffing wheel though. So that shouldn't be too much of a difficult task. Let's get to work. all cleaned up nicely. And so to get these marks off, they almost look like dried glue. That's quite hard. And before I polish this, I'm actually going to use a little bit of benzene, and I'm going to see if benzene will take these marks off. I think these marks, it's going to be too hard for the polish to cut. It's coming off slowly but surely. Okay, so at least we got rid of most of that. Now we'll use a bit of autosol and we'll see if we can get the stem looking sharp. Okay, so it's got a few small marks on it. A couple of scratches over here. One or two at the top there. But certainly nothing that distracts from the beauty of this 1A Cinelli stem. I think Cinelli call this coating a milky anodizing. It gives us this kind of silky look to it. So to get any scratches out of it, you need to take that coating off. And it's certainly not worth stripping the coating off just to take one or two small little scratches out. So those we're going to leave as the patina defect, and we'll keep that stem just the way it is.